tonight is each of these gentlemen will be able to have a 2-minute intro. We'll have an opening statement, whatever they want to say for 2 minutes. I'll be timing them. We will then go through a series of questions. If we have some time, I'll take some questions from the audience, and then they'll wrap it up with a 2-minute wrap up, and we'll be done. And we'll raise hands and see who won the debate. That'd be awesome. I hope it's going to be an exciting and fun debate. Each of them will be able to, if they want to, rebut anything. They will each have 2 cards. Note the gray and gold. They each have 2 cards that they may use if they want to rebut something when it's not their turn. When they don't think they should be rebutted, they can, if they want to, raise either one of these and do so. They may also add 30 seconds to either their opening or closing statement or an answer to any question if they want to use that. Up to them. They may use that for 30 seconds any way they choose to use 30 seconds. If they don't use them throughout the entire debate, they get an extra minute on the end of the closing statement. Does it make sense, everybody? Any questions, comment on that? Awesome. Begin now. If each candidate would do me a small favor, announce their name, and then begin their 2-minute opening. I'll begin basically from here across because that's how you sat down. Please start.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
Okay.
2 minutes.
Yes, my name is Gary Popkin. I'm from Brooklyn. And I hope to do class action advocacy for the residents of New York City. Now, the usual role of an ombudsman is to advocate for a single resident against a government entity, a government agency. But lucky for us, government agencies in New York City insult tens of thousands of residents at one time. NYCHA, for example, treats its customers very badly. The sanitation department insults tens of thousands of residents every time there's a snowstorm. One neighborhood or another always goes unplowed for 3 weeks. The Board of Elections treats voters with disrespect. In this last election, tens of thousands of New Yorkers were deprived of their right to vote. That is real voter suppression. Now, I agree that voting should not be too easy, but there's a wide line between voting too easy and voter suppression that warrants UN intervention. And the Board of Elections did it in this last election. The method used by the Board of Elections does not work for normal volume. And other agencies, the Parking Violations Bureau, insults hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers with its kangaroo court because it's not an independent judiciary. The Parking Violations Bureau works for the same guy that the police work for. They both work for the mayor, and the mayor tells them both, revenue, revenue, revenue. And so I hope to roll back the administrative state. Now, each of these different problems, the NYCHA insults, the Board of Elections insults, each of them takes a different remedy. Maybe during this time I will have a chance to explain some of them.
Thank you.
My name is Christmann. I'm running for Public Advocate, and I'm taking this election very, very seriously. I've been going to forums. I've been winning the hearts of many Democrats, believe it or not. I'm going to be debating Curtis Lewa on Monday. The reason why I'm running is I had a problem with the Department of Buildings, and I reached out to the Public Advocate's office to help me. The Public Advocate's office told me through a representative to give her $2,500 to her campaign, and she will take care of it, and the Washington Post is going to be releasing the story. I am the absolute best candidate in the race. And the reason why I haven't been showing up to the Brooklyn Libertarian Party, and I would have been there in a second, is because I had a radio show, and I even invited Larry Sharpe onto my radio show to promote libertarianism. I am honored that I'm standing in front of you guys here today, and I feel like I'm in front of a firing squad. And I think that's exactly how this should be for everyone. And many people aren't going to like this, but I believe the future of New York, in order for anybody to win and not be a Democrat, they're going to have to sweep the Republican nomination, the Conservative nomination, and the Libertarian nomination. And the standard you guys hold here is going to be very important for the future of New York, because we need to instill liberty. Now, what I've done in my platform, and I know many people have scrutinized me for it, is I've studied the moves that the socialists, that's a bad word, that the neoliberals and the crony capitalists are making. And I have come up with a plan to neutralize every single one of them. The last time I was here in this room, I spoke out against the elimination of tolls and e-tolls.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mike Zumbluskas, and I want to be your next public advocate. I'm running in this race because I actually think I'm the best person for this race. I've actually worked in the private sector, the nonprofit sector, and right now I work for the Department of Transportation. I understand how the city works because I work as a resource management analyst. And almost every single one of our public advocates so far has misused the office. They were just using it as a springboard, except for maybe Betsy Gotthard. I, in my position, have saved the city millions upon millions of dollars. Just with one program, I was able to consolidate and get economies of scale, getting rid of consultants that really weren't doing that well, bringing it in-house, and going from 16 engineers to 4. That's how I was able to save $3 million. And as the public advocate, in the charter, it actually states I have the ability to go into every agency and check out what they're doing, how they're misspending money, mismanagement, and since I already have I already have that experience working in my current job, I think I can do a very, very good job. I also have a lot of ideas how to fix things in the city. For example, NYC, for example. I have 2 ideas to be able to raise money to help fix those without hitting the taxpayer. The first one is, in the Department of Transportation, we have something called Adopt a Highway. 15 seconds. Okay. So basically, rich people want to put their names on buildings, they can do it. The second one is people that owe back taxes, contractors, individual tradesmen will also go in to work off their back taxes by fixing NYC.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. You have timekeeper?
Yes.
If you could please use this to put up in the air when they have 15 seconds left. Okay. When you see that, you'll know you have 15 seconds.
How much time is it now?
It'll be 2 minutes. They're going to answer every question. 2 minutes. Are we okay? Excellent. We'll start with you if I could. Mr. Christmann, ready?
Yes.
All right. This is a very libertarian question. Why do we need or not need this relatively new position that only started in 1993? 2 minutes.
Ideally, we don't need this position. Ideally, we do not need this position. Ideally, we do not need this position. However, we have, look at the L train shutdown, for instance, and look at NYCHA, for instance. The L train shutdown from Jump Street was BS. It was nothing but crisis creation. They had 2 tubes, they never needed to do it, and the whole time I was watching over it, I saw how grossly unprepared they were. All they did was work to get more taxes imposed. A tax on Lyft and Uber. As I was saying before, in this room, I complained about the eradication of the toll booth workers union. And I said that it wasn't fair, that we couldn't opt out of the e-toll and we couldn't pay cash. In this room, not a lot of things leave this room. We should have been all over that. Because as I researched it more, it was a $100 billion program to institute congestion pricing and facial recognition in this city. While they are creating a crisis and then justifying having Amazon come in. This gentleman, who represents the independent party and is not a libertarian, and I guarantee will not sign that form, wants to push for eminent domain for Amazon to have a light rail, and he works for the DOT. However, what he doesn't realize, working for the DOT, is we have something called East Side Access. And in 2022, there is going to be a train line going into Grand Central Terminal, coming right to the Sunnyside Yard, and they are going to have carte blanche of the city, and they are going to get their light rail. We need somebody to defend liberty, and that is the only reason why we need a public advocate, because the socialists, the neoliberals, the bankers are running roughshod on us, and the middle class is dying.
Thank you. 2 minutes to respond to the same. Can you repeat the question?
Well, he also attacked me on the
You
other
get 2
side.
minutes and 30 seconds.
Okay.
So do you want me to repeat the question?
No.
Okay. 2 minutes, 30 seconds.
Okay, let me do the response on the Amazon deal. I do believe we need Amazon in the city because we're already losing 100 middle-class families a month. We can't continue doing, a day, not a month. And the thing is, Amazon's going to bring high-skilled people in. This is back office. This isn't the warehouse. Now, for me, I think we gave too much money to them, and I think we should be asking for stuff back. When he's talking about the light rail, what I'm pushing for is just to connect the subway stations, the LIR, and the ferry terminal to Amazon into the neighborhood itself. Because we don't want the traffic coming in for the 25,000 workers to 40,000 workers that are going to be there. Long Island City is already very congested, but because most of these workers will not live in that area. They'll live in Manhattan, they'll live in Long Island, Westchester, especially the ones that are being imported in from other locations. Most of them are used to living in houses, not apartments. Now, going to the why I think the Public Advocate's Office is needed. We do not have an independent DOI. It is appointed by the mayor. And if the mayor puts in a crony that is a yes man, we're not going to have deep investigations. We have a one-party system in the city, and the Republicans, the 3 in city council, are useless themselves because they don't hold investigations. Most of the public advocates before us have not gone after the agencies. They're not gone after the city council. Even the controller does not have the ability to look into agencies. They only have the ability to look into agencies when the contracts they use are over. You need a watchdog. You need an independent elected official that is not controlled by the mayor or any of the other parties. And you need somebody like me that has the experience to actually go in and understand the procurement system, the regulations, the MWBEs. All that stuff is creating problems in the city. Also, another big factor is the public advocate sits on the pension board, and right now our politicians want to basically politicize it instead of worrying about the fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers.
Do you want to use your 30 seconds to rebut?
Well, I just wanted to let you guys know that, I just wanted to let you guys know that East Side Access is a direct train line right into Amazon. This gentleman right here claims that he knows that it's back-end jobs. However, Amazon has not released their business plans to the public. I got access to their mechanical drawings, and I'm going to be seeing them at the beginning of April to really do a full-scale investigation as to their robotics and what their business plans really are. We need to know it. BlackRock and a bunch of foreign investors own Amazon.
Well, right now you get 2 minutes to answer. If you want more time, you can take more time. But you get to answer the question. The question is, why do we need or not need this relatively new position starting on Chinese radio?
Oh, I just wanted to correct some errors.
Do whatever you like.
First, my worthy opponent here refers to the $100 billion of facial recognition cameras. That's wrong.
No, it's not.
The governor has proposed $100 billion of infrastructure investment, what he calls it, for roads, bridges, and facial recognition cameras. I don't know how much of that 100 billion. 100 billion is more than half the state budget. I don't know over what period. I don't know how much of that money is for facial recognition cameras. It is my opponent here also has the extremely non-libertarian position of wanting to defend a dying industry, the toll takers union. Maybe he defends buggy whip manufacturers. Also, I don't know, and hand weavers. And the fix for NYCHA, the libertarian solution for NYCHA, the simple fix for NYCHA is convert those buildings to co-ops, give the apartments to the tenants, and shut down NYCHA. Some of those apartments are on extremely valuable real estate. Across the street from Lincoln Center, for goodness sakes. I can't afford to live across the street from Lincoln Center, but my tax money subsidizes people who can. The tenants can sell those co-ops and have more money than they've ever seen in a lifetime, and the money from the sale of one co-op will buy a house in 98% of the United States. The money, the $1 million, the $2 million I get from a co-op will buy a $150,000 house almost everywhere, except maybe in California. Yes, thank you very much.
I've been scorned as a socialist for saying exactly what he just said. It's called council housing. Margaret Thatcher rolled it out in the 80s. The program worked beautifully. The biggest knock was the people got to sell their property for 5 times worth than what the government paid for it. The city, and it was $100 billion for facial recognition, e-tolls, and congestion pricing. The other tunnel is going to be $13.5 billion. That's federally funded. It's a $100 billion New York State project. You were in the Libertarian Party and did nothing about it.
All right, thank you guys, thank you. I want to move on to the next question. I'm going to start with you, Michael, if I could. What can you achieve or change by this November? What can you achieve or change by this November?
Well, the first thing I can change is the pension fund, because right now it's only 65% funded. The union leaders and our politicians have been lying to everybody that, you know, it's saved in the state constitution. That's been ruled unconstitutional. If there's no money, there's actually courts that says you don't have to live up to the old contracts. And the pension fund, even if you're not a city employee or a retiree, still affects every single one of us as taxpayers. Well, I'm a union member too, but because last year we gave $8 billion to the pension fund. That's not union members' dues. That's $8 billion to try to end the 35% liability. So right now they're trying to politicize it, and they want to get rid of all the oil stocks, all the drug companies, which are some of the highest paying dividend stocks on the market. And pension funds needs dividends and income. They want to go to alternative energy. Most of those companies won't be around in 10, 15 years. Oh, there's only one dividend-paying alternative energy company, and that stopped paying dividends 2 years ago. I actually was invested in it. But, so I can actually affect that because I can bring that to the attention of every union member, every citizen right now, and because they're going to have to allow me to look at where the investments are. I tried doing that as a member of NYCHA, and they wouldn't let me do it. I can definitely affect that. I can also affect numerous other things because I actually have a support in Democrat and Republican areas all over the city.
Specifically for that?
What I can accomplish by
You'll
November.
get that going. Daniel, you're next. Please, what can you accomplish by November or
First of all, I am going to get a moratorium on Amazon. What am I going to accomplish by November? What I'm going to accomplish by November is I'm going to change the conversation in this city because this election was hijacked by this guy and his 2,000 votes. We could have been raising money with the funds, matching funds, and we could have had millions of dollars already going into the next election to win that. I am going to organize the Republicans the Conservatives, the Libertarians, and the Green Party, and I'm going to come up with a sound answer to Jumaane Williams, who's in charge of housing and buildings, and is running this city into the ground, and I'm going to win Public Advocate in November like we're meant to in a true election. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to roll back this push for rent control for all with my housing policy, NYCPublicAdvocate.com. Check out the housing policy. I am going to get our city back under control, back with the eyes of liberty, and I am going to make this work. We have a choice. We have an island the size of Texas of plastics. And too many Republicans and too many Libertarians want to look away. But that plastic island isn't going away at all, and we need to address it. And we're going to need to address plastic islands all over our whole entire government with libertarian policies before the EU and their neoliberal Agenda 21 crap comes up with the policies for us. That's what I'm going to do. I have New York City Public Advocate. I'm organizing all the other public advocates, and we're going to be scrutinizing, and together we're going to be focused on what this position is, what these guys are doing, and we're going to report on every single little thing to make sure that this city works for us and bring the Libertarian Party to the forefront of this state where it belongs more than any other.
You got 2 minutes and 30
And
seconds.
30 seconds.
Right,
Slow.
Yes.
Slow. Yeah, well, I'm honored to have been slowed. I'm honored to have hijacked the liberty movement. That is wonderful. I wouldn't have hijacked anything, but I'm glad to have hijacked the liberty movement. What I can accomplish by November, when there will be a partisan election. There will be a partisan election for public advocate in November. And so one of us can run under the Libertarian label in November. So that will be very exciting. That will be very nice. But voter suppression is very hot right now, nationwide. And so we can take advantage of the very unfortunate development in Larry's election, where tens of thousands of New Yorkers were unable to vote because of the 3-hour waiting lines. And so what I would do, what I can accomplish between now and November, is to demand of either the president of the Board of Elections, or maybe just the head of Election Day operations, whose resignation was called for. It was a serious enough public issue that the resignation of the president of the Board of Elections was demanded. We're going to ask him to present a new way of conducting elections, because the way elections are now conducted does not handle normal volume. It handles very light volume, but normal volume it can't handle. It does not scale up. And if he cannot present a new way of conducting elections, and I don't want to increase costs, I'm not going to spread it out over 7 days and multiply the costs by, well, almost 7, to have to staff 7 days. If he can't present a new way, a new plausible way of conducting elections, then we fire him and get someone who can. And in the interview, we will invite to bring the massive innovative power of the free market. We will invite people from private industry to interview for the job and have them present ideas of how they can change the conduct of the election so we don't have, as I said, voter suppression that warrants UN intervention. We don't want the UN inspectors.
He did point to me. Get a rebuttal?
That's what?
Did you point to him?
He did point to me.
In response to your statement.
The hijack business, yeah, right. That I was honored to hijack the liberty movement.
I don't think that counts as that.
Doesn't count. Okay.
So, yeah, I'm going to start again. Thank you, guys. Gary, I'm going to start with you this time. 311 is a big deal for a lot of New Yorkers.
I'm sorry, say that again?
311 is a big
yeah.
issue for a lot of New York City residents. Do you think the public advocate should have control of 311? If yes, what would you change? If not, what should happen with 311?
Public advocate control. No, the public advocate advocates for residents of New York City. Public advocate should not have control of 311. The public advocate does not introduce legislation, does not take side. The only sides that the public advocate takes is in favor of the resident against the city. That is the role of the ombudsman, to take the side of the resident against the city agency. That's all I have to say about 311.
I'll let him answer whether the public advocate can introduce legislation or not. You've been in this game for too long to not know that. We manage a retirement fund, we pick city planners, and we introduce legislation. Now, what 311, I hate to say it because I'm a Luddite, and I hate the fact that we use metadata or whatever the hell that is. But when you call 311 and you have a problem, and somebody actually has a problem with the city agency, the first person 311, when they don't know what to do with you, is to send you off to my office. I'm a plumber. I'm not one of these, this is uncomfortable as hell for me. I'm a plumber. I'm used to working till 1 in the morning. If their water's still not on, I'm there till 4 in the morning. This city is in peril. Call me. I'll be there. I will have hours where the public can just walk in to the Dinkins building and talk to me. People with problems who are getting the runaround from 311 absolutely need to get in touch with the public advocate, and when 311 isn't answering, can't answer, they should defer them to me right away. Yes, I think the public advocate's office and their $4 million budget should have somebody right at the top of 311 making sure that is happening. That's our first line of defense to make sure our city's served. And God damn it, yes, we do introduce legislation. And I am going to introduce some awesome legislation.
The original question was, should the public advocate have control of 311? If yes, what would you change? If not, what should happen with it?
Well, thank you. You just gave me another issue to run. Because actually, I think the public advocate should have it. And it's the first time I ever heard of that, and I think it's a great idea. Right now, it's controlled by the Department of Information Technology and Telecommunications, one of the agencies I used to work with. They don't care. They just care about collecting data. The public advocate is the one that wants to help the people, and should help the people. So they should be able to organize it. It should be under their office. Just, right off the top of my head, because then it's not just data that they're collecting. I can actually move that data into different sections and going after the agencies more effectively than Do It would do it, because you have a lot of computer people that sometimes just don't understand the personal touch. When you call 911 or 311, you get people that really don't know the agencies they're dealing with. So as public advocate, and if I'm controlling that, I can actually get better people, train them better, so that they actually understand some of the problems that are going on and actually direct it. Not just to the help desk at some agency, but they can actually go and say, okay, it's a problem with, say, potholes. They can actually go to the pothole, they can direct them right to the potholes department in each borough, so they can get to fix those quicker. I'm just now putting this concept together, but I think that is a fantastic idea, and I would definitely push for the public advocate to control that.
Thank you. Next question. Start with you, Mr. Daniel. Right now, it's very popular that Mayor de Blasio just came up with the new healthcare guarantee for New York City residents. What is your opinion on that, and what should be done?
Listen, when we live in a city where they can have heroin spas, where they inject you in heroin, and we're forced to pay for it, I think it's a lot more important that we're actually covering our health care. When we live in a city and a country that makes money off of how much money that we make, I think our health should be a huge priority. I'm a libertarian. I can't stand the government. I can't stand the waste. I've been on Medicare. I've had a hurt knee before. I went to a doctor with an x-ray. He wanted to re-x-ray me. It's perfect to have a libertarian public advocate to come in while they're trying to do this right now to make sure they are doing it effectively. And we also have to make sure that private independent medicine is still maintained. Now, one of the most important things and controversial to people and shouldn't be brought up is there's 60 cities in this country that don't have fluoride in the water. And everyone in this room has a cyst on their pineal gland because they're drinking fluoride. That should be investigated. The other things that should be investigated are GMOs. And I'm not scared to say it. Listen, we are losing our liberty to social issues we can't control. Let's get ahead of them. Let's win on the environment. Let's win on healthcare. Let's win on LGBTQ rights. Let's win on education. Let's win the city and not let the banks control us.
We're going to Gary. Of course, yes, the question is, recently, Mayor de Blasio has announced his new health care guarantee for New York City residents. What do you think about it, and what should be done?
Well, first, drug addiction is a terrible personal problem. Drug use and drug addiction is a terrible family problem. Law enforcement should have no involvement in drug addiction. It's entirely a personal problem, a family problem, a medical problem, maybe religious or other kind of community organization. Law enforcement should have absolutely no role. Other institutions have to step up and do in regard to drug use and drug addiction. And as for, I don't know the details. Lucky for me, I don't know the details of Mayor de Blasio's health plan. I just want to remind everybody about a fabulous single-payer drug plan, a single-payer health plan in the United States, the Veterans Administration. Boom! Right? Marvelous. How did that work out for you? So I don't know what de Blasio's, but these guys are not libertarians. So they have statist solutions for everything. Ah, yes. Now I get an extra 30 seconds for that. I have kept my Republican enrollment so as to keep my cushy patronage job. But as soon as the new form came out, I checked every day. I checked every day for the new form. And as soon as the new form came out, I filled it out and checked the Libertarian box. As you know.
Would you rather have 30 seconds now or after he answers the question? Would you rather have?
Gary, do you want 30 seconds now or after?
What? 30 seconds?
No, you're good. You're good.
No,
now it's Mike, go ahead, please answer the same question. He gets 2 minutes, 30 seconds. Please go ahead.
Oh, because
Well, the $500 million, $100 million, because you know, every time they give a number, it's going to be escalated. We spend $30 billion on our school system. You realize only 64 countries spend more on their national budget than what we spend on our schools? You think that $100 million is going to actually cover the insurance? They're fooling themselves. And also, by the way, I'm probably the only veteran right here, and on the state. And also, I know firsthand how bad the VA hospital is, because in 2009, the VA hospital caused the premature death of my father. Because they did not detect the cancer for over a year, and finally my stepmom said, I'm taking you to my doctor, and within 1 day they discovered the pancreatic cancer. So I understand that healthcare is a major issue, but the way they're approaching it, and I think the way de Blasio's thinking about it is, I'm going to save money, because what he doesn't tell you, we're spending $9 billion on the city hospital system. $3 billion are going to illegal aliens that don't pay it back. So he's thinking if he gives $100 million,
illegal.
Huh?
Well, how are they illegal?
No.
They're illegal.
No, stop.
All right.
Stop.
There's no such thing as illegal.
Alright, stop.
Another time,
We can get into that later. But he thinks he's going to save money that way. It's not going to happen. The cost is continuing to go up unless and it's going to have to be national. We're going to have tort reform and a lot of other basically reforms that are going to have to cause our healthcare system to come down. Right now, nobody's even talking about tort reform. But, you know, the doctors do too
Hold on
many...
1 second, Michael.
Sorry.
Mark, give him a break. Come on, let him finish. Give him 15 more seconds.
Okay. Too many doctors give unnecessary tests because they're worried about being sued. You know, in Pennsylvania, for example, they have a shortage of pediatricians because they were sued so much. There was a case in Philadelphia where a woman who smoked, drank, and did drugs, the baby, had problems when it was born, and the doctor had to pay out $500,000. It was all his fault. We need tort reform to say, hey, enough's enough. And that's going to have to happen at the national level. Thank you.
I'm a libertarian. I don't want to hear from this clown anymore. You don't even take this seriously. You don't even wear a suit. And you waited until this year, 6 days into the petitioning process to get something going. He said illegal alien. I agree with him. Undocumented. However, we have rules that I agree with, like transgender rights, that I totally agree with, but then they infringe on if you call them a he or a she, and it's like, we're like 50, 60 years old, some of us, and we're not used to it, and we're getting sued. We can't be knocking each other because he might not have meant any harm.
Thank you, Dan. We have two people. Would you rather go first, 30 seconds? Go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
30 seconds, please.
I've been a libertarian longer than half of you have been alive. But I will not use age as a factor in this election. I will not exploit for political gain the youth and inexperience of my opponent.
I've never claimed to be a libertarian. I want practical government. I don't look at anything from ideological views. I want what works, and I don't care where it comes from. If it comes from the left, right, libertarians, from anywhere. I want government that works. And we can have government that works. We just have to elect the right people. Right now, we're not doing it. Too many people have given up voting. We only vote in this city at a 30% at a statewide level and a 24% at a citywide level.
All right, guys, I'm going to ask another question, but I want, if any of you have a question in your head that you want to ask, please begin to formulate it. I will ask in a second. No speeches. Ask the question and just the question, no speeches. Okay, I'm going to give you the opportunity to talk about one of two things. Either the MTA or whatever you think is more important than the MTA. So 2 minutes on what do we do about the MTA, or you tell us there's something more important than the MTA, and talk about 2 minutes on that subject that you think is more important than the MTA. Either one, MTA or pick a subject that's more important. Now, can I start with you? Sure.
I will go with the MTA because the MTA is the lifeblood of the city. Because people have to get to work and get around, and there's no way we could have enough cars or anything else on the road to get people there on time. The MTA is a disaster. It's complete mismanagement. Right now, the single systems were built in the 1930s and the 1940s, and they're saying we need $15 billion to fix them. So if we need $15 billion of capital money, why did they just announce $500 million of station renovations up in Washington Heights? We should put on hold all station renovations unless it's an emergency and put that money into the single system. People have been putting up with bad stations for decades. They would love if the trains ran on time. So that's called mismanagement, and that's something I can do as public advocate. Now, I don't have the authority to investigate the MTA because that's a state issue, but I can use my bully pulpit to put pressure on the governor and the head of the MTA to say, hey, let's spend this money appropriately. People want to get to work on time. People want to get, go to the theater on time. They don't need to be these stations and say, okay, I ended up at work an hour late, but I have a pretty station to sit in. That's ridiculous. And this is what's going on all through government. This is the stuff that I want to go after in the New York City government, at the state government level, and these are things I can do. I understand how the system works. I understand the holes in it, and I can put legislation through to solve some of this stuff at the city level, and bully pulpit at the state level. Thank you.
Gary, if you go ahead. MTA or something you think is more important.
Yeah, I don't know whether a problem of the MTA, maybe a problem of the MTA can be addressed by firing the top guy, and when we interview for his replacement, we get in people from private industry and ask them to bring the massive innovative power of the free market to bear on this chronic problem. Or maybe the MTA has to be sold to private interests. Oh, egad, private interests. They will just raise the fare. Well, that's what the MTA does. If the subway is sold to private interests, then we must remove barriers to competition, and that will keep the new owners honest.
As far as the MTA goes, I'm not too impressed with the problems. They've been telling us the L train needs to be replaced the whole time. I get in almost every day, back and forth, no problem. I'm not impressed with their new controls. And as far as I'm concerned, they had controls that worked for 100 years, working just fine. Rebuild them. We don't need to spend $40 billion on controls. Sorry. I know everyone wants to go for their, for the Tesla model, but screw it. Now, what I will say is the most important thing in the city is housing. Housing, housing, housing and food. Housing and food. We have a social welfare program that is horrible. Yeah, it works. Yeah, some people get housing, some people are in homeless shelters, and some people get food when they bring their food stamps to the store. However, all the wealth that we spend on those poor people is getting bypassed directly through them into rich, elite people that control the DNC lobbies. We need to get the money into the people's hands. Everyone who's on Section 8, who's in a neighborhood that's about to get rezoned, and when they get rezoned, they're going to get rezoned empty-handed and with nothing. We need to set up a voluntary buyout for them in which we realize we're paying their rent for the next 20 years at market rate anyway. Let's get you a deed to the house, just like my friend over here said, who's an elder, and I do respect, by the way. Now, the other thing is we have food, billions and billions of dollars of food. It's unhealthy, it's trash, it's horrible, and all the money goes to the supermarkets. We need to fix that. We need to help our infrastructure. We need to help our farmers in our state. And we need to help our message. We are not messaging to the poor. We have no messaging, we have no answers, and we need to get the message out to the poor.
Yeah, libertarianism helps the poor most of all. The spread of free markets in Asia, in India, in China, and Africa has found the poorest people getting richer faster than anybody else. Free markets have done more to lift hundreds of millions of people out of poverty in the shortest time ever known in history.
Go ahead, please, Alex.
Okay, so when
Who are you directing it to?
can I direct it to all three? Or?
Of course.
Okay, so I'm directing it to all three. So bottom line is, when you ask us for your support, when we give you support, it's not just to win the race. The result will be raising your profile, making you more aware, which can be a useful asset for growing the things that we care about. So on February 27th, if the unlikely scenario that you are not public advocate, what would your advocacy look like going forward, and how does the Libertarian Party play a role in that?
Does anybody want to volunteer to go first with that?
Oh,
Then you go ahead,
yes.
sorry, then you put his hand first.
I think really where I want our advocacy to work is when I look at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's website and I see her messaging, she touches on every single point. Every single point that our inner cities people are like, yeah. When I look at Julia Salazar's website, I see every single point and I'm terrified. Rent control for all, publicly funded housing via Amazon, having the state control the internet. What I want to do in my advocacy is reach out to the poor and give them the message that there's another way out. Submission to the government is not the only way to get out of our problems. You people out there have your back, and we're going to, as humans, we're going to have human solutions to get through this. We're going to get through it together, and we're going to be based on liberty. Our advocacy, my advocacy, and like I said, I have NYCPublicAdvocate.com, and I'm not stopping with it. My advocacy is how are we humans going to band together against the system, especially when we are now combining Amazon, who's heavily invested with foreign banks, access into our city government. What are we going to do to fight back? Because those people and those shareholders do not have our kids, they do not have us, and they do not have our futures as their first priority like the people in the city do. And I want the city to put the city first, and I want the city to know that me and you on the subway, we're the top priority. When me and you are on vacation, we don't know each other from Adam, I'm from the Bronx, you're from Brooklyn, we're friends because we share that bond, and we need to fight for each other first and foremost, before our politics, before our government, we need to fight for each other, for humanity.
Yes, February 27th. Well, I hope that regardless of what happens here, Daniel from Brooklyn and Kevin and I, we can work to raise libertarian awareness in Brooklyn, so in the next governor election, Brooklyn delivers much, much better.
First of all, I will be the public advocate, but some of the stuff that I can do, especially with you guys just forming. I went through this with the Independence Party. I can actually help you skip some of the growing pains if you allow me to. And I volunteer that to help you because, like I said, I was at the beginning of the Independence Party and all the infighting, the backstabbing and everything else. I understand the election law. Also, my profile will be raised, especially if you guys endorse me. That means I will post fundraisers for you. I will try to help you any way I can to expand your base. Even though I'm not going to join, I'll be honest with that, because for my political future in past, it's tied with the Independence Party. And at this point in time, I still want to keep that, and maybe at one point in time, take over the Independence Party from the current leadership, because I think that it's being mismanaged. But I think I can help the Libertarian Party. I think I can actually raise its profile. Larry did a fantastic job. If I land this thing, it's going to be because of your help. You can catapult me to victory. And one of the things that is unique about me is I've helped candidates all over the city, Democrats, Republicans, in almost every neighborhood. I have support in Democratic neighborhoods. I have support in Republican neighborhoods, and some of the poorest neighborhoods to some of the richest. In my last election for state senate, spending $15,000, I got 33,700 votes. That's a good base. Then if I start getting those 2-3% from all those other candidates that I've helped, and some of those have good name recognition in their own districts, I have a path to victory here. And I have a path to victory in November because I can appeal to multiple constituencies.
Oh, okay, I am chagrined that I forgot Vlad is from Brooklyn, and I hope he will join us in raising libertarian. Oh, and Alex is from Brooklyn. And Rivka?
Yes. And Aaron lives in Brooklyn. Just
I used to.
If this guy becomes a public advocate, then in November, when there is a partisan race for public advocate, what?
Yes, please, 30 seconds about.
Well, if I become public advocate, I would seek your line. Unless you want to run one of your own people, that's fine. You guys have the power to cross and doors now. I've run with your line before, and I would run with it again. I have and I've advertised it. You can ask Ron. I've always advertised your line, and I probably put somebody on my staff if they want to be on it to help look at it. All your, if you have problems, come to me and I will address it, just like I would do with anybody else. Okay.
Great. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I've heard the talk from a couple of candidates about cross endorsements, forming alliances with other parties, but doesn't that strip the party of ideological purity and make the party the auxiliary of another party, the way the conservative party is the auxiliary of the Republican Party and the working family is the auxiliary of the Democrat?
Yes. Going forward from 2020 on, our intention is to run as candidates only enrolled libertarians. So if we nominate or designate an enrolled libertarian and that candidate wants to get a Wilson Pakula authorization from the Democrat Party to run in their primary, then that's fine with us. Now, the election law does require us to allow candidates to ask us for a Wilson Pakula authorization, candidates who are enrolled in another party or enrolled in no party. The election law requires that we entertain their request, but their request is not very entertaining to us. The state committee will almost certainly vote down a request for a Wilson Pakula authorization from a candidate not enrolled as a libertarian.
Good.
In my opinion, it wasn't Larry Sharpe that stole the votes from Martin Molinaro. It was Martin Molinaro that stole votes from Larry Sharpe. I'm not even just saying that. That's a fact. Now, this room, and listen, how much credit can I take? I served on the secretary of San Francisco Libertarian Party. Great people, by the way, great people. I haven't been with my blood, sweat, and tears coming there and all the discussions. I know how fun some of them are, like you guys have. You guys deserve a lot of credit, and I'm giving it to you right now. But the Republican Party is in shambles. It's completely fallen apart. And the Democratic Party, it's got carte blanche. The Republican Party is looking for their next answer, and Curtis Lewa is not their next answer. And I have respect for you, Curtis. However, the fact that there is a right wing, and the right wing is searching for more answers, the fact that we are the only true opposition to the Democrats, this room right here can set the standard for who's going to go up against the Democrat. If you survive through here, you survive this room, you stick to true libertarian principles, you don't violate the NAP, you're not living in a police state, you don't want slaves working in NYCHA, you don't want all sorts of crazy things this guy wants. If you want to actually maintain libertarianism, and you want to maintain liberty in New York State, and the Republicans want to be viable, they got to survive this room first. This isn't about 2,000 novelty votes every election. This is about winning New York, and we need to do it, and we are responsible for setting the standard, and I will always maintain that position.
I have a completely different view. You have to govern. You have to govern. And we're seeing right now what ideological differences and party differences are doing at the congressional level. Nothing's getting done. Nothing. But we have to cross party lines and get consensus on issues. Because if not, you're never going to get anything done. And if you actually try to just... nobody agrees with everybody. Sometimes not even yourself. You have to compromise. Because you don't want to give up your principles, but sometimes there's compromises to get legislation done to move it forward. Because you can't get it all done by yourself, right? Especially when you're a small party. If you continue to do it as a small party and shut down everything, if it's not following your lines, you're not going to accomplish anything. Because right now, you're a minority party. Maybe later on, when you get more power, get more people in office, you might be able to push it further along. But at this point in time, you're not going to be able to. You're going to have to compromise on some issues. Not your principles, but some issues to get legislation passed. Thank you.
I have a question. First off, I've been listening to all of you. It seemed to me that they're really campaigning to be angry white knights. But the name of the office is Public Advocate, and even that's a misnomer. It's essentially a fill-in for presiding over the city council, submitting legislation.
Your speech,
and
question.
I'm leading it as a predicate to a question.
It's called speech.
And you really don't have the constitutional charter authority that you're purporting to have. My question is, can any of you name at least one, and preferably 3, members of the city council who you think are your natural allies by name?
So, can you name, the question is, can you name 1, preferably 3, members of the city council who these individuals believe would be their ally? Is that correct?
In submitting the legislation that they described.
Good, good.
I think Jumaane Williams is actually a very nice guy, very easily, you can talk to him very well. I think Corey Johnson is absolutely phenomenal. I think he's really, really, really tough and hardcore. Maybe Joseph Borelli out of Staten Island. That's really about it.
Well, I'm personal friends with Joseph Borelli, so I can definitely work with him. I think I could work with Ben Kalos, my own city councilman, because I have a relationship with him too. Third one, there's a couple of them, but I can't think of a name right off the top of my head. But one of the other things is I know I can create relationships. I always do. And I've always been able to do that. So I'm very personable. I can go in and I can discuss issues.
Garrett, go ahead.
Oh,
Name 1 or up to 3. Okay.
The statist mindset always has a statist solution. My solution for the MTA is I have no solution. Let's bring in people who do. Let us, in the Libertarian case, let us get the innovative power of the free market to be brought to bear on these intractable problems, these chronically intractable problems.
Good. One more? Go ahead, please.
I have one question for, I guess everyone here. Just from Queen here, she's talking about Amazon. right now it's projected each job will cost about the taxpayers $48,000 per job. And if you were to work, what would you do to, I guess, what would you do to at least quarrel, I guess, excessive cronyism with it, or at least stop it entirely? The city working, I guess, to give Amazon an unfair advantage per se.
Is your question, what would they do to stop the city from giving Amazon an unfair advantage?
Yes, like they get I guess excessively special treatment.
Excessive, regular special treatment's okay. I'm just being clear with your question. You said
I'm trying to be
excessive.
pragmatic.
Okay, so you're being pragmatic. You said, what should you do to stop excessive special treatment from Amazon?
Oh,
Please, yes.
yes. Okay, well, no subsidies.
Yeah.
Well, we know that de Blasio and Como are running for president, and that's why they gave so much to Bezos, because they want his support when they run for president. So what I can do is, as a bully pulpit, I can go in and look at those subsidies and actually bring it to the attention of the press and try to shame them. That's about all I can do, unless they cross the line and it becomes illegal. You know, because in politics, there's a fine line what's legal and illegal. So unless they cross that line, and I will do those investigations, and if it does cross that line, I'll immediately go to the DA's. Attorney General will be a waste of time, but you know, at least one or two of the DAs might take that up.
Thank you.
Anyway.
De Blasio is going to run for president. De Blasio is in charge of the DNC, or he was in Brooklyn. He's the biggest threat. And anyone listening, don't poo-poo it. He's a threat. That's why public advocate's very important. As far as Amazon goes, because somebody's got to really get in there now before he becomes president. Now, as far as public advocate with Amazon goes, so I've been doing research and going to where the DSA meetings are and seeing how they rolled out in Washington, seeing how they rolled out in the other Washington, Seattle, and what their strategies were. Their strategies is to constantly encroach on being part of the government more and more. They want to fund public housing. They want to fund the education. They want to get involved in our transportation. Amazon is full of foreign investors that do not have our interests in mind, and we need to stop it. How do we stop it? You need to get everyone together and get a moratorium on it. We need a moratorium on Amazon before they start the building. Public advocates get arrested, whether I win or not. I'm going to get arrested down there, standing in front of a bulldozer, not because it might not be the worst thing on earth, because they have the audacity to move in here without telling us what they're planning on doing. And that, to me, is an outrage.
I want to do a 2-minute closing. If you get 2.5 minutes, because you not get your 30 seconds, you will get 3 minutes for a closing. All right? We start with you, Gary, please. 2.5-minute closing.
Yes, thank you very much. We need libertarian solutions. We need for libertarian solutions to be made known. We don't need more cockamamie, shall I call them, statist solutions. A statist solution out of one person's mind is just that. It's just some untested, untestable solution from one person's mind. The libertarian solutions are what made this country great, right? From 1800 to 1900. A truly libertarian society, a mostly libertarian society, except for an unpleasant war in between there. And so that is my goal, is to raise awareness in Brooklyn of libertarian solutions, and you know, and deliver better libertarian results. Next governor around.
2.5 minutes.
2.5 minutes. Guys, this is New York. One of the things that we have to remember about New York is this is one of the most progressive places in the country. We don't have to be progressive to reach the goals of the progressive. One of the major goals of the progressive is the Green New Deal. One of the ways they want to roll out the Green New Deal is by making a mandatory law to put solar panels on every single person's roof unless they go with a rooftop garden. And if you do your research on that, it's called Agenda 2030 out of Europe, where the banks are financing the solar panels and figured out a way to make money on the sun. We can't sit back and not take the lead on green issues. Why not have us be the ones running the forefront on going green before they do? There's so many wonderful things we can do. Another way we can win the hearts and minds of us. People don't mind the natural gas industry, but it's a monopoly. And our city spends $50 billion a year on natural gas. Con Ed and National Grid have the streets. They have laws in place that say, guess what? You can't burn wood. Guess what? You got to get rid of your oil. And now it's just only natural gas. And 80 to 90% of our natural gas is going to be coming from upstate New York and Pennsylvania. And that's a crisis. And what we could do is we could sit back and wait. And we can wait for the neoliberals, and we can wait for the socialists to come up with an even worse solution. Or we can win their hearts and minds and come up with liberty solutions that are going to appease them. Because we all want to... I'm fat now because I've been in politics and I'm just eating and stressed out about this guy and everything else. But I'm actually a yogi. When I'm in the yoga studios, they believe in the same things we do. They just see it differently. It's up to us to get out in front of it and win these battles before they get us in checkmate with their leftist ideals. And that's very, very important. NYCPublicAdvocate.com. I am the public advocate. I am the town crier. I am meant for the job, and I'm not going anywhere, no matter what, and I will do it for free.
Thank you, everybody, for having me here. I don't believe in big government, but I also understand we can't unwrap it all in one day. You're going to have to systematically dismember it. And so, I know you keep shaking your head, but there's no way you can do it. It's impractical. So, I want practical government. I want stuff that works. We need to, a politician is part teacher, leader. He's a rabbi, he's all this to people, and he needs to go out and counter a lot of the stuff that is becoming from the progressives. And I can do that. Especially like the $15 minimum wage. They keep on saying, oh, we have to increase the minimum wage. But nobody's talking how it's failing in Seattle, how automation is taking over, how the people that got the $15 minimum wage are actually bringing home less money. None of the progressives are going to tell you that. I will. Because their overtime was cut, their hours were cut. So they're bringing home less money a month. And I have done that to progressives. I've talked to them. Prime example is on immigration. One of the things I talk about immigration is we don't have the infrastructure to keep bringing in 1.5 million people a year between illegal and legal immigration. That's the size of Philadelphia every single year. We have an unbelievable homeless problem, and it's just going to continue to be exacerbated. We also have another problem that we are moving from the technological age to the AI robotics age. By 2025, they say 20% of our jobs are going to be reduced by AI, and only 9% new jobs are going to be created. And in that way, we need to train the people to actually take those jobs, be able to take those jobs. What I want to do is I want to go to all the businesses in this city and say, what skills do you need now? What skills do you think you need in the future? And then create vocational studies to actually fill those jobs that are needed. And I think that's an area that we have to do. Also, I truly do have a chance of winning this thing because I have small pockets all over the place. I have gotten more votes in a losing effort than almost every other candidate running, spending $15,000. The most Melissa Viverito ever got in a winning election was 16,000 votes. Michael Blake, 11,000. I got 33,700. That's a base to work with. And then I can pick off people all over the place. I have some connections in the Chinese community. I believe I can win this race. Thank you, everybody.
You want me to just do clapping? What would you like me to do?
Yeah.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to ask, who do you think won the debate? And I just want, as I point to each person, just clap and tell me who you think won the debate. Right? First, Gary.